yeah, I knew I was forgetting something. Okay. End of a long day. Yep, okay, here we go. Now we got the sound. Okay, those of you wondering what that long blank spot was about, I forgot my mic. I'm talking to the people on YouTube. Got to keep them posted. I hope you haven't given up on this recording. Maybe the tech guys could trim that first 5 minutes off. They're okay. Now the mic's on, and we're just starting to take the questions. So here we go. Anybody got one? Yes.
It's under the January 27th through February 1st, and from the bottom.
Okay.
Which century did toothbrushing finally become common practice?
Which century did toothbrushing finally become common practice in the USA? The 20th century. Basically, right about in the 1940s there. Hey, how are you doing? Would you like a paper copy of the review outline? There you go. Alrighty. All right, so we got another question out there? Yes.
Same section, January 27th. It's just the third one down. I have lots of food, but not the most popular food.
Okay.
The second one down.
Yes, I see it now. The three favorite most popular foods that are of Native American origin are corn, of course, everybody.
Peanuts and potatoes?
Peanuts and potatoes, yes, that's right. And we talked about that. You got all the corn and peanuts byproducts, and then such a diversity of potatoes that grow all over the world. That's why, yes, sir.
February 3rd and 6th.
Okay, what we're going to do, and maybe I forgot to say this, we're going to do one page at a time so we don't have a lot of page turning going on. So hold that thought till we get to that next page. And so we'll spend a little time on this page, maybe another 10 minutes or so, and then we'll spend a good amount of time on that second page that has the most of the points and the questions. Okay, anything else from January to February 1st on the first page? Yes.
The fifth bullet point from the bottom.
Okay.
Plant first used by Native Americans to help the lungs.
Yes, and we, there's several possible answers that could come up on that. And in this region, plantain is a real popular one. Down in the southwest, you got the agave, and then later the Spanish brought in its little cousin, aloe vera, which then became used the same way. Yeah, and there's a few others. I think plantain or agave would be a likely candidate for answering that question on a multiple choice. Okay, a little hint. Yes.
Six up from the bottom for
Okay.
27.
Okay, the tree common to the area that contains, common to this area that contains the medicinal ingredients found in aspirin. Well, the most common right around here is the cottonwoods. Then I guess next would be the willows. Any kind of poplar trees you see in the area, those would have it. Yep. Okay. Any more? Yes.
The very last
Bottom of the page, last one. Why were team sports more common than individual sports in Native American societies? And what my answer for that was that the Native societies were more cooperative in their social organization and their economics than in Europe, where they were more individualized, and person against person was more common. Very competitive societies rather than cooperative. Okay. Yes. Anybody? I can't sit on that table. It's kind of squeaky. Guess I'll just stand up for a while. Yep. Alrighty. Yes, sir.
The very first bullet point, under January 23rd and 25th, how many Native Americans and North American common survival?
Yes. The estimate on that, as it currently stands, is about 12 to 15 million. Yep. Okay. Should we go to the next page, or do you got any more from this page? Anybody? All right, I got a request to go to the next page. We can always come back if at the end if we still have some time, you know. Okay. So you had one from February 3rd up there at the top of the page.
For the fifth bullet point down is the Great Spirit or Creator seen as equal in status with other spirits.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question, and the short answer, no. And we talked about a hierarchy of honor and respect in the spirit world, and creator spirits at the top of that guides to the other spirits. Yeah, okay. Any more from February 3rd through 17 there?
The 6 basic elements of Native American sacred tradition.
Yes, and where is that one?
2, 3, 4 down, under February 3rd.
February 3rd, okay. Oh, yes, I see it now, okay. So that's, there's some questions that are big questions that have lots of information in them. So those 6 basic elements you saw, I won't be able to go over all 6 of those, but I can tell you from the outline what they were. And, the first element was a description of the Great Spirit and the subsidiary helper spirit beings. That's a common part of the cosmology. The second element was the one that discussed the interconnectedness and interrelatedness of all things. And, what was the third one? Ceremony, yes, that's our way of interacting with these spirit guardian beings and being connected through ceremony, where you can give something back to the helpers for helping us. Ceremony. The fourth one was the teaching of morals and values. And now all of these are worded a little bit differently in the book. I'm just telling you what they're about. You can see the exact wording there in the book, so that there is a clear distinction between proper and improper behavior, moral and good behavior and not. The fifth item was the special knowledge of medicine people compared to everybody else's knowledge. And that was the comparison of the knowledge of the ways, teaching others how to do things, how to make things. And then there's knowledge of the beings, which is an interrelational kind of knowledge through prayer and ceremony. And that's where the medicine people are more adept, I guess you could say, or have a greater participation in that. But everybody prays, and everybody has some relationship. So that's the fifth one, where you see in there, and I can't do that whole lecture right now, but that there's knowledge of the ways that's transmitted from elder to younger, and knowledge of the beings, which is your personal relationship with the spirit world. And in the old days of the vision quest and all that, everybody had a spirit helper connection, and received songs and guideship. Wait, is there a word called guidership? No. I just kind of made that up, didn't I? Guidance, that's the word, guidance, yeah. Alrighty. Sixth item, of course, I guess, the importance of humor, and how even in the spirit world, the helpers and the guides had humor in the way they dealt with the people and the humans. And so great spirit, subsidiary spirits, and interconnectedness through them, and interconnectedness of all, followed by ceremony and the ways of giving back, morals, values, the special kinds of knowledge, and lastly, humor. That's how those folks outlined it, and I like their outline. It seems to include just about all aspects of spirituality, and then you go to each tribe and all the regions, and you get more detailed information on how they approach that, from a particular perspective. But I like that. And again, I highly recommend that book, Peggy Beck, Nia Francisco, and who's the other gal? The Sacred Ways of Life and Sources of Knowledge, or something like that. Sources of Knowledge and Ways of Life. The Sacred is the main title of that book. Okay, and now we're still on page 2. Well, you got any more here? Yes.
Third from the bottom, under February 3rd.
Under February 3rd, what are geospecific spirits and what do they do? So that again is another way of talking about the helper spirits. I coined that phrase, geospecific. It hasn't really caught on. You don't see it in other books yet. But it points out that in the spirit world, the spirits, they're assigned by a creator to help certain people. They're assigned to those particular places. That's why I said geospecific. They're not omnipresent, like a great spirit being that goes everywhere and sees everything. So the geospirits, what they do, the geospecific spirits, is help the species, the peoples of that place. You might have a different one for each species. There's corn spirits, there's spirits that watch over the wild huckleberries in a certain place, of certain trees, and of the water, that guardians of the water. So they have their different responsibilities specific to the place they were sent. Healing of the human beings is one of them. They provide the medicine for the medicine people, teach them how to use it. The first people did, first spirit helpers, and they're constantly thanked for that initiation into the world and knowledge of medicine. So that's another thing. Multiple responsibilities there. Okay, let's go. Any more questions on this page, second page? Yes, sir.
The fourth down from February 8th to 10th, but two main types of Native American creations.
Creation stories, fourth bullet down there. Yeah, so the first and most common I referred to as the earth diver stories, where a spirit creature would go dive through the water, the ocean, and bring up a little bit of the earth at the bottom of the ocean, and the Great Spirit turn it into a continent. The second type was called the emergence stories, where you have a series of worlds, the ball within a ball kind of outline I showed you, where you're given the first world in the center to live in, all the different species. When it came to a point where they weren't sustainable, they hadn't been following the directions, then they would go through the sky, through an opening. Those guys were laughing over there and made me keep wondering, what's so funny? I got to get that distraction stuff out of my head. Okay, and the opening at the top of the sky is the portal into the next sphere that surrounds your old world that you had to leave because of the misbehavior of a certain species or two, and they ruined it for everybody else, you know. And so, just in brief, you know, without going to the whole lecture again, but many of the Pueblo peoples say we're now in the fourth world. The Navajos, who also have emergence stories, say we're now in the fifth world. And several of them, and maybe all of them, I haven't asked about every tribe there, but say there will be another one. And this is an ongoing process. There's many ages in the history of being on the planets and all that. So don't ask me about other planets, though. That's the way beyond me. I don't have expertise in that, only speculation, and you probably don't want to hear it. Okay. Okay, so let's take another question from this second page.
The last bullet point on February 8th through 10th,
Okay.
what percentage of human history is included?
Yeah. I'm glad I put that in there, you know. It's a new addition to this course that I decided to include a couple years ago. So, direct answer, 2.5% of the history of Homo sapiens sapiens, the so-called fully evolved man that came from the previous Homo sapiens, which came from Homo erectus and all that. All of that stuff you got in your biology classes. Well, according to science, you know, I don't want to argue about 200,000 years, but we'll just kind of go with that, okay? And that's when humans kind of entered their current state of evolution, you know, that basically, and you know, we haven't really changed a lot since then. Just with different sets of tools, pretty much, and a lot of confusion. But for most of this time of our species, we were living in small-scale, sustainable, earth-friendly, tribal societies. Till about 5,000 years ago, 5,000 out of 200,000 will bring you that 2.5%. Okay. And, you know, it'd be interesting to hear what somebody else thinks about that someday. If you want to come by the office and talk to me about it, it's a lot of uncharted territory there. A lot of people don't think about big history. You know, basically just the anthropologists do, and they don't always ask the right questions. You know, like, when did we become unsustainable? You'd think everybody'd want to ask that question. Okay, don't get me started. I have a finite amount of time to cover this whole thing, and I bet some of you are a little worried I won't cover it all. But, you know, why would you worry about that? Did I do anything in the past to indicate I might not get to the end of something? I might have, I guess. All right, so what do we got? Who's got another question? Yes, they're in the back.
The last one on February 36th.
Okay, there's a lot on that particular couple of days there. Okay, why did I say medicine people instead of medicine men as our... And it's very interesting. You have 3 women authors of this book, 2 of them indigenous people, and they use that phrase, medicine men. That's, an overused, misused phrase because there's so many women healers, women doctors in traditional societies, medicine women. And so I said medicine people as an inclusive term for women and male healers in traditional societies and spirit people. Another kind of medicine person is ceremonial leaders, the people given responsibilities for leading everybody in ceremony. Again, you have women and men in charge of different ceremonies and different tribes. So that's an important point. I'm glad you brought that up. A lot of people probably missed it the first time I said it in class, and it's essential knowledge. Okay, let's get another question. Anybody? Alrighty. How about that February 8th through 10th? Anything out of there? Yes, sir.
The last bullet point, the approximately what percentage of human history?
Oh, that's the one I just said a little while ago, the 2.5% one. Did you have another one from that section there? Anybody? I'm going to go grab my coffee. Feeling a little dry in the mouth there. Hope it's not cotton mouth. I shouldn't be nervous. You get called on to speak anytime, any of you, and then you get what they call cotton mouth. Your mouth goes dry because you're nervous. That's all that is. It's not a medical condition or anything. It's a psychological condition. I'm not nervous, so I just must be thirsty. Plain old thirsty. Okay. Yeah, I drink that coffee all day long, because I got a long drive home at night. Get kind of tired on a Friday night. I want to go off the road into the ditch. And then you had a question, and I'm making you wait forever. You go ahead and ask that
Please
question.
don't end up in a ditch, that would make me very sad.
Okay.
6 from the bottom on February 8th,
Okay.
significance of being a lucky person.
Yeah, people might have missed that the first time I said it, and that, not going to go into the whole description of the stick game like I did that day, but what the essence of this is, the difference between a Western concept of luck and luckiness is that in indigenous worldview, a lucky person didn't just get that by chance. So you take that roulette wheel chance concept out of your head and go to how does this person live their life? If you live in close harmony with the spirits and with the teachings of the first people and all that, and you're upholding your responsibility for keeping the world alive, living in the good way, on the good path, they would say that you build up good fortune doing that. It's kind of the old saying you might have heard in other cultures, what goes around comes around, and the karma idea and all of that. It's kind of like that. But it's real specific to how you live your life. I know people that even teach the karma idea with a sense of luck involved about it. So you got to get that randomness and the chance out of there and really look at the cause and effect relationship between being close to the spirit world, receiving power from that way of life, answers to your prayers, power songs that help you win stick game, things like that. And then you understand luck in a completely different way, as a real result of something. Okay, let's get another one. Anybody? Yes, go ahead.
The second, the bottom, have you ready? Do it again.
Okay, what is more important than human needs in deciding how much of each resource to harvest from the earth? And it was the total needs of all the different species in your home ecosystem. And so, and that's one of the reasons why you had ceremonial leaders and medicine people involved in harvest, is because they'd not only been watching the plants and knowing when they were ready, but they've been watching all the other species around and how they're doing and how many of them there are this year and how they're going to need the plants too, And so you have guidance, and when you go out after that first prayer ceremony to pick your plants, your natural harvest, let's say huckleberries. I always say huckleberries. That must mean I just love them. Berries, maybe a little too much sometimes. But so you're out there, in the traditional way, and so at some point, the grandmother or the elder over this will say, okay, that's enough for right here. We'll move on. We're going to move over to this other place now. How do they know when it's time to move? And that's what we're talking about here, is they've been observing closely all the other species who interact with that same plant, and they consider their needs too. And it's a special skill to have that kind of awareness, It's nothing a person just stumbles into lightly. You spend time listening. You receive instructions when you first started, and developed an ability through prayer and listening, and you're ready to lead people in that kind of ceremony. Yeah, so there you go. That's part of it right there anyway. Okay, let's take another one from this second page. How are we doing? Yeah, we're still good for time. Yes.
Under February 8th and 10th, the third bullet from the bottom, why did I refer to this topic, indigenous economics as applied spirituality?
Yeah, isn't that an important question? So we began looking at spirituality, cosmology, traditions, right before we went into economics, and there was a good reason for that. The question we were seeking to answer by studying economics is, how would you live with the economic world, or the resource base as they call it, if you believed in those ways of living and believing in the spirit world? And how would that interpret out into how you actually live, if it's more than just a mental belief or a doctrine, it's actually how you live? Then this economic way of life just naturally flows from that respect for all life. It's not an economic life, as we were saying, centered only on human needs or desires, but it's looking at all nature as a gift, and that needs to be taken care of well. So the connection, to sum this up for you, between spirituality and economics is a profound connection, and I would say in other religions and belief systems that don't see the earth the same way, it still becomes a profound connection, because their economics often then come out of sync with the earth and become harmful to natural cycles and species, and you get extinctions and all that. we're going to look into that later when we look at cultural contrast under history and see kind of what went wrong, why was there conflict, what was the roots of all that. Okay, so we'll get to that one later, but it's essential to understand the connection. It's not an understanding you get to overnight. I think with our lectures, maybe we began to see it, that economics isn't this random practice that depends on money and is based in scarcity, but it's in its original form, it's a result of how you respect the earth. Okay. All right. Okay, let's take another one from page 2. Then we'll need to go to that last section on page 3. And then we need to look at these essay questions. And then we can go back to any of the short questions if we have time. So let's take one more. I don't think we've had any from February 13th through the 17th, have we? Or do you have any from there? Maybe we can take a couple from that section.
Third from the bottom under that last section, controlled burns had to be combined with what other traditional practice in order to work to the benefit of all life?
Oh, it's the third from the top. Okay.
Third from the bottom.
Yeah, because I just
Third from
couldn't
the
see it.
top, sorry.
Yeah, all right, there it is. Okay. In order for controlled burns to be done successfully, it had to be combined with the regular gathering of the fallen limbs and branches from the trees. You had to keep that fuel supply on the forest floor to a minimal. And so people didn't go around with a big axe or a chainsaw cutting down trees. They would regularly gather what had already fallen to the forest floor. And you might have seen this in places where people are coming out of the woods with a bundle of branches wrapped up and kind of put on a backpack and tied to their back. They still do that down in Mexico. I was down there many years ago. And so people with the backpacks of the bundles of branches, and also on the sides of their donkeys. Their donkeys had little packs of firewood on it too, and it was just what they'd gathered from the forest. And so, yeah, many indigenous people in Mexico still living in their traditional ways. So that's essential, because you can't have a controlled burn in the forest if the fuel is so highly built up and it would get out of control. Out in the plains and the grasslands, the practices that were essential were using natural and man-made fire breaks, rivers, cliff sides, and then fire trails that people made. So that was what was essential out there. Natural fire breaks. Okay. Well, okay, you got one more from this page? Okay.
The second from last question, it's entirely the national animal product that is used to embroider.
Oh, you're on that last section, right above the essays. Sure. Oh, that reminds me, we got to cross a couple items out that I didn't cover yet. Okay, so we came to our end of time today in both classes, and I didn't talk about porcupine quills yet, so let's take that bullet, second to the last bullet right above the essays on page 3, and just make a squiggly line, cross that out. What else did we not cover? The one right before that, I think I said it, I hope people understood it. I was talking pretty fast. So how did the originally abundant natural resource base affect the amount of time that European contact Native Americans had to put into their art? Actually, I said that when we were talking about Indian time or natural time, that when you only had to spend 15 to 20 hours per week in gathering the resources for food, shelter, clothing, you had plenty of time to make all your stuff really beautiful. Anything you made, decorate it real nice. You know, and I didn't say this today in class, but even the ball game sticks, your lacrosse sticks and hockey sticks were nicely carved or painted. They often had a design on them that represented the ball player who owned that stick, and you knew who it was. Oh, do I have time for a little story? Yeah. You guys planned to be here till 6, didn't you? We can go early if you want. Okay. Wonderful story I got from, there is a Jewish anthropologist from Australia, and of all places, who had studied Native American culture in the U.S. way back in the 1930s. And he got this story from the Kansa people. I think it's Kansa, not Kansa. But the state of Kansas is named after the Kansa people. And they like to play that field hockey like just about everybody else. And this is a story about how people with disabilities were included in everything. And they had a tradition that if there was a blind person amongst them in their village, and they were going to have a ball game and they're picking teams for the game, and the game with the sticks, hockey, they would have all the ball players who wanted to play bring their sticks, and these are personalized sticks you've carved and put your design on it that represented you, and put them in a big pile in the middle of the field. Then they'd bring the blind guy out and direct him to the pile and said, yeah, reach down, it's right there. And he would pull the sticks out one by one and put them in 2 separate piles, and that's how they would pick teams. So nobody's like thinking, oh, you didn't pick me, or you picked me last because you think I suck. Am I bringing back bad memories from the playground to you guys, or junior high school, or the cruelties of life? And so this was so fair. The guy would just kind of reach around, pull up a stick, put it over there. He had 2 piles. It's totally impartial. And everybody accepts that, and then they find their stick, and they're on that team, and they played it. I don't know of another tribe that had that tradition. I imagine maybe somebody else might have thought of that, but so the blind guy feels like, hey, I can't play hockey with those guys, but I have a big important role here. I'm the chooser of the teams, How about that? I just love stories like that, Well, let's look at these essay questions. Did I cross everything out that needed to be crossed out? Yeah, I think we pretty much covered all that. It was just we didn't get to porcupine quills. We'll get to that after the exam. It's a wonderful artistic media. Okay. So we have 2 questions, and I'm just going to talk and tell you about these, and then if we have time, we'll go back and hit any of the short bullets if we missed any there. So, I've written and rewritten these questions many times over the years, and every time I edit and redo them, it's always because it seemed like people didn't get it. I tell you, I've got things underlined, italics, bold print, and they still don't see it sometimes. So let's make sure everybody, including those listening on the YouTube, understand this. Okay, so I'll read it through once and give little explanations. First question. Of all the contributions of Native Americans to the world, within the categories of foods, medicine, hygiene, inventions, and sports, which particular examples, plural, not just one, you get people that answer the question and all they want to talk about is corn. I'm not kidding. Okay, let me finish the question. I can tell you all of my experiences later. Okay, which particular examples do you think are the most important, and why do you think so? And I tell people this over and over again, and you see it up above. An essay isn't just a statement of belief, because I said so. But it's a statement backed up by facts with some explanation. That's why they call it an essay. If it's just a simple statement, you just write it out in one sentence and said, I think they love corn. And no, I think corn was the best contribution. Oh, plural? Okay, and hockey. End of my essay. That's it. No, you have to give reasons for what you believe there, you know. You're not going to argue with your opinion. That's fine to have opinion. It might not be the same as mine. That's fine. But at least you get some kind of explanations. You got to back it up a little. You can say, because everybody loves corn. Well, let's get a little better explanation. Corn's really healthy. You can say a bunch of stuff, you know. It's okay. Corn's become very important to the diet of humanity around the world. Yeah, there's a good reason. Okay. But there's so much more besides corn. Don't everybody start writing about corn. You know, you might want to write about hygiene. Yeah, I'm sure glad people brush their teeth. Okay, I've had essays where people just say, I'm sure glad people brush their teeth, end of essay. You know, so please, you know, you say, you know, toothbrush, daily bathing for these reasons, you know, and then go on, and then maybe throw a sport in there too, you know. Okay, and what else did I say here? Pick any specific items, underlined, plural, from any category or categories, plural, that you think are the most important. Please, pick specific items, more than one. You know, that's one of my recent additions because it's, you know, people still didn't get it, you know. And so, more than one within the broad categories rather than picking a broad category itself. So this means don't do this other common mistake. I think medicine was the most important invention of Native people. Because gosh, you know, if we didn't have medicine, what would we do when we're sick? You know, what medicines are you talking about? Let's get a specific item or two here, you know, and a little more reason why you think, say, aspirin is an important medicine. Why was quinine important, you know? And then maybe talk about another category too. Or if you have multiple examples from one category, that's fine, you know. Talk about a bunch of medicines. Talk about 3 of them at least, you know. If you want to have hygiene as your whole discussion, you know, mention the toothbrush, the daily bathing, maybe a few other items, you know, not having cattle that piss in your drinking water and stuff like that, you know, or, you know, things like that, you know. You might want to bring up more than one. If you say sports, talk about more than just how I love basketball. Did you know I was on my varsity team? Oh, I am not kidding. I've had thousands of essays over the years. And, I get a kick out of them. Yeah. Most of them are pretty dang good. I'll just say that. The majority, they answer the questions, they do pretty good. I get people that just want to talk about themselves, and how we took state. Did you know that? Okay, I love it all. I wouldn't still be a teacher if I didn't love all this stuff. Yeah, and so there you go for question 1. Any questions? When I said pick more than one item again at the end, didn't I? Okay, so I think you got that, didn't you? Anybody have any questions about Essay 1? Okay, let's look at the other one. And actually, and I don't want to prejudice anybody or give you a hint of which question you should choose. So you're only choosing one of these two, right? I think question 2 is a little more challenging. It's a little more interesting to me, but it's still scored the same way. You can't get more than 3 points on one of these. So if you pick question 2 just because I just said that, doesn't mean you're going to get any more points than anybody who did a good job on question 1. But let me just read it and talk about a little bit of what I'm looking for here, why it's important. Imagine that you live in a society and a world without money or currency, in which all of your material goods come directly from the natural world without the need for trade. So that first sentence describes what I'm asking you to imagine. And what am I basically asking people to imagine is that you're living in the old traditional ways. And the next thing to add to that would be that it was in the resource base that could sustain you. And how do you keep it that way? So, what would you have to do to sustain and perpetuate your society? Not just yourself and family, your people's way of life and your source of life, which is the ecosystem, the homeland itself. So again, a lot of times, you understand what I'm asking for when I tell you what I'm not looking for. And so in contrast to this, what would you do to sustain your society question? I'm not asking you, what would you do as a survivalist mountain man all by yourself to live off the land? It's about a society of people living together, and how do you work together to keep it sustainable, not just, when I was on the survival show, I've had people claim they were on the survival show. You wouldn't believe the things that you get on these essays sometimes. Are they joking? I don't know. Sometimes I've been able to track them down and ask them and stuff, but I usually don't bother. I'm a busy person, I can't just go around tracking people down. I'm not a detective either, no, it's not about you against the world or you against nature or anything like that. I'm asking you, imagine your people. You're living in the traditional way. You've got a beautiful world and you want to keep it that way. The things we talked about in class, of course, And so you got to think about what are the limits of sustainability. What do you have to do to keep your society fit for this way of life? One of the big ones that you would expect people to include in an answer to an essay like this is population. What do you do if you get too much? How do you keep your population sustainable? And you could talk about natural birth control, things like that. That would be one thing. What about how you harvest from the earth? Do you just go out and start grabbing as soon as you notice something's ripe? And we've already talked about the importance of having guidance in what do all the species need, what can the earth afford to give us of this particular plant this year? You know, has it been a dry year? Is it kind of a rough year for the berries? Are the other berries not doing so good, and the grizzlies and the chipmunks are going to depend more on this berry this year? That will help determine, you know, how much you can take. You know, you don't just go out and grab, and as soon as you throw things off balance, you might be able to recoup yourself. You might be able to correct yourself, and things will come back the next year. But if you fall into a pattern of this unregulated, unrestrained grabbing from the earth, eventually it goes out of balance. You start to see extinctions. You start to see plants not come back in regular abundance. And so that's something you might mention in this kind of a essay. Last part, the last 2 sentences. You can describe what would work as well as what would not work, or what you would have to avoid. So you can use the positive examples or the negative examples. You can combine that in your essay. The reason I like this is because I really do want to see people think about this. You know, I love my world, my natural world. I don't want to see it disappear, you know, and I like all of us together to cooperate on preserving all the good that's out there and keeping life alive. So I like that question, but I gotta say, you know, either one, you know, I appreciate you answering either one of these questions. You don't have to just pick 2 because I like it. I probably shouldn't have said how much I like question 2, but I did say it, didn't I? Well, you know, I still think most people are going to pick question 1. It's always that way. That's why I felt it was okay to say I like question 2, because question 1, you know, if you've studied the stuff and you know from the list and the charts in the book and all that, it's a pretty easy question to answer, right? And if you were there or listened to the lectures. Question 2, I think it is a little more challenging and requires a little more thought, and maybe going back and listening to those lectures on economics from YouTube again. How am I doing? I just have a few minutes, and so back to the, okay, any further questions on the essays? And then back to the short bullets. Were there any of those that you wanted me to hit again that you didn't get to ask about? Yes.
The February 13th and 17th.
Okay. Third from the bottom, February 13th. The average hours per week of labor, is that the one?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Average hours per week, when you average out the busy times and the slow time during the entire year, was roughly 15 to 20, somewhere around 16, 17, 18 hours. Is what the anthropologists who've done good field work estimate now. And that was, you know, back in the 1970s when they first kind of discovered that. I imagine a lot more good field work has been done, and that might be down there around 12, 13 hours now, but we'll go with the 15 to 20 that is kind of the standard in anthropology now. Okay, we'll go with that. Well, thanks for being here, you guys. You performed a community service for your fellow students who didn't show up, and now they can listen to this on the YouTube. And I hope that was useful to you. You know, let me know. I appreciate feedback on all this stuff. I don't want to get too carried away helping people out, you know, if they don't really want me to. But it seemed like you guys really wanted to be here. So that's good. All right, well, we'll have a great weekend. Don't spend all your time studying, but I hope you spend enough of it that you do real well on the exam Wednesday. Okay. And check that discussion board on the Moodle page. People are going to put up questions on there too and answer them back and forth. It usually happens. You usually get 5 to 10 people interacting at least. And who knows how many just go in there and read it and they don't put any of their own comments in there. So take advantage of all that. Okay, have a good one. We'll see you. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.